Hi, I'm David Belsky, the CEO and founder of Flower Hire. We have an amazing guest, one of the most authentic cannabis stories you will hear, Ryan Basore from Redemption Cannabis. Ryan, thank you for joining us today.
Thanks for having me, David. Excited to be on.
I'm excited. I have so many questions to ask. I'm gonna get into it. You were one of the original wave of caregivers in the Michigan market. What was it
Mhm.
first that drew you as to do that as a calling?
So it goes back. I grew up on a farm outside of Lansing, Michigan. And when I was 12 years old, I fell off a tractor in the winter and I screwed up my backs and my hips. And then after about 2 weeks, the doctor prescribed me 3 Flexerals a day as a 12-year-old. And that really was, messed me up. And then about a year later, I discovered cannabis and it did everything I needed it to without side effects. Like I said, it's a small town. I was related to everybody, and there's school is important. I did well in school and
Where
sport.
where on the hand was it?
All right, on the hand, it's basically like right here, just southeast of Lansing.
Okay.
About yeah, in between East Lansing and Ann Arbor, exactly. So that kind of weaponized me early at an early age. I started saying, well, "Why is this a Schedule One? Why is this illegal? Why are people going to jail for this?" And I was considered a crazy conspiracy theorist on marijuana back then. But fast forward, I started growing some in my 20s. I had a career in finance, just for fun, and was always just kind of hooking people up here and there. But when in 2008, when we passed the Michigan Medical Marijuana Act in Michigan, I was ecstatic. I went right in. I was one of the state's first patient and caregivers with my condition, and I had already been growing some, and then I set up, and I was in it, and I left a career, and they didn't they were shocked. They heard about it in the paper. They said, "Hey, you either gotta shut down your dispensary or quit." And I said, "All right, I quit." And they were like, hold on a second. We didn't think you were gonna say that." But I just knew it. I was all in. I was all in. I saw the future.
Yeah, and obviously your personal connection to the real medical benefits of the plant really do show in the ethos of Redemption Cannabis, the brand that
Mhm.
you've built. And obviously, I don't know if it's obvious to every guest, but you were a licensed caregiver under Michigan's medical cannabis program, and you ended up going to jail for 2 years. Through that process, came out and doubled down on your commitment to cannabis. And so, talk to me about sort of your journey into founding Redemption
Yeah.
Cannabis.
Yeah. So just like you said, after I became a caregiver and patient, I saw a dispensary open up in early 2010 in Michigan, and I was just like, "Well, it's always been my dream to have a dispensary." I used to go to Amsterdam once a year, and had dreams of moving there back in my 20s just to do it. So I did that, and I also set up a caregiver grow and just outside of Lansing with some future family and some friends, and we got that was after I left the career after I saw on TV President Obama and Attorney General Holder say they're not going to interfere with states that have programs, and I saw Colorado explode, and I was like, "All right, well, this is my chance. I'm all in." And I set up the caregiver grow. We got the state police, the local police, and even our county prosecutor signed off on everything.
Did
Body
everything you
side
were
up.
supposed to do.
Exactly, did it up, and things were going great. It was a great year, and then December 1st, 2010, I got raided by those same state police, the DEA, the FBI, the ATF, but who actually conducted the raid was the National Guard. We got raided by the military, in the suburbs of Lansing for, at the time at that location, there was 40 plants. So I was outraged. I didn't, I was outraged. I actually went on the news the next day and told them to basically get effed. And, for over the course of the next 2 years, I got followed by Blackhawks every day. It was about once a quarter. We'd have a Chinook hover over my house for about a half hour at a time. I'd get pulled over off the record by cops and shaken down, and they would just harass me and try to get me to react. And, finally in 2020, I got raided really bad at my house. It was a bad one. I looked down, I had red dots all over me, and it was a bad one. And that's when we knew we were getting indicted. So about a week later, 7 of us got indicted, including my now brother-in-law and father-in-law. I was going to fight it. I didn't understand the federal system. 99% of the people that get indicted in the Western District of Michigan are found guilty. it's not set up. The prosecutor and the judges are on the same team in the federal system. So I was the last. Everyone else had pled guilty, and I had run out of money. And my lawyer called me and said, "You gotta plead guilty this week. If you do, they'll give you 4 years, and if you don't, you're gonna get between 10 to 15 if you go to trial, and they're gonna indict your fiance." So that was it. I went in, and I went into FCI Morgantown 4 years. I did the behavior modification program. It took a year off my sentence, which was not easy. It was pretty wild. And then I did about 2.5 years. I got out in the halfway house in late 15. And when I was in there, he said I doubled down. I was just like, this is happening to me. It's super intense. Let me lean into it and make it my crucible moment. And when I was in there, every day I did exactly what I said I was going to do. I studied on how to build websites, SEO. I worked out, best shape of my life. And when I came out, I was shot out of a cannon, like 80, 90 hours a week. Got back in the industry. I legalized. I was building websites, doing social media, anything I could to stay in the game. And then early 2017, I got let off probation. It was supposed to be 8 years, and it was 1 year, and the judge even apologized. So I was off. I was consulting a lot in the industry because of my record. I couldn't be a part of the Michigan's MMFLA that passed by the legislature. That was the first framework for dispensaries and what we have the 5 licenses today here. So I was doing that. I was heavily involved in Prop One. My part of the law was that the writing into it that marijuana felons not only are allowed, but we get celebrated in Michigan. You get discounts. You can possibly get grants, but you're a part of it. And you know, I was that passed, and we celebrated, and then I was consulting at the time. One of the groups that I was consulting with was Gage Cannabis. I was helping them find properties, and they said, "Hey, we got a social equity grant, 50 grand. We'd like you to apply." And I did, and I'd already planned on building the brand. It was always my angle because I lost all my capital, and I knew I had something unique, and it was always the plan to do a brand. I thought of it in prison, and I studied for it. So, that's how Redemption Cannabis was born, and we do 10% of all our revenue goes to the Redemption Foundation. The reason I did that is because in 2000 and 10, after I got raided, was that we had a new attorney general in Michigan named Belsky, and he made it his goal to eradicate Michigan. So all these caregivers were getting raided, and CPS was coming taking kids away, and at a dispensary, and they'd just come in and cry to me. And so we were always raising money for these cases to fight them, and helping their families and things like that. So I wanted an avenue to have something funded where I didn't have to always ask people for money, and then also give back and remember what I came from.
I mean, it's crazy that in the first moving medical markets, a lot of people don't realize Michigan was definitely in that crop. There's similar stories out there,
Mhm.
and it doesn't necessarily make sense, and you were able to find strength through that,
Mm.
and now with your brand Redemption, and the Redemption Foundation, you had mentioned like it is so 10% of all sales of your brand
Of our
goes to the Redemption Foundation, and
Mhm.
and what are you trying to do with the funds from that right now?
Well, before I answer that, I just wanted to say that the Robacher Farm Amendment got passed in 2014 when I was in prison, and that's when it kind of stopped in Michigan. That was kind of like there might be people wondering, hey, why am I protected today and not then? But we didn't know that. But what we do with the foundation, we do two things. First one, we have a community access grant. We call it Rick Thompson grant after our buddy that Pat actually he passed away, about a year and a half ago, and he was a big reason on why we're here today, and he was a huge advocate with us. So we're honoring him. But we give grants to organizations that are doing what we believe in, and we've given grants and are responsible for over 2,000 free expungements in the state of Michigan, reentry programs. We work with LP Less Prisoner Project. We work with the Weldon Project. We work with local groups. We do a uh, a toy kind of a Christmas a holiday drive every year. We raise about 30 or 40 grand, and we have families that have parents that are in jail for marijuana or have been and are struggling, and we find them and we give them a dignified Christmas, and a lot of sometimes medical supplies, and make sure we're taking care of them. So that's constant, and we are in other states, so we've been given grants and Baltimore, and getting ready to do our first one in Pennsylvania as well. It's exciting. So, but the second thing that we do, and it's what I'm most proud of, and it's really tangible, is our commissary program. And commissary is basically your books or how you spend money in prison. So when I was in prison, the most you could spend a month was $300. It might sound like not much, but if you're spending that in prison, you're balling out, because my first job in there was cleaning a bathroom, showers, toilets. It was a horrible job, gross job. I got paid $14 a month to do that. So, you think about that at the time, email minutes were 25 cents. They timed me on those. Phone minutes were 50 cents. Stamps are stamps. The cafeteria where I was at, the food would say not for human consumption on it because it was so old. And, it just gives you a chance to not get yourself in a bad situation. And the reason I want to do it is I thought about it, like what's the biggest impact I could have on people that are like me, what happened to me. And this is it, because the difference of having money on your books or not can change your bid completely. So right now we're averaging about 10 to 15,000 a month on about 200 federal cannabis prisoners' books, and our goal is to raise that up and get it up to 300, max them all out. And we've got some great new partnerships coming on board. Some a big national brand that's going to really help us do that. And, that's the goal. The goal is then to have them all get out of prison, and then we'll help with getting their lives back together. But in the meantime, we're making sure we take care of the ones that are in there.
I mean, it's so many amazing things there. I mean, I think I can imagine. I can't actually imagine being in prison for years for a plant, personally, but I could imagine that, like, just the hope that having money put into that account can do to inspire you to keep your head on and have a future to look forward to. Like, the impact of that, it's beautiful.
Well, I think, I was in there and I had great support, and I would read the paper, and I started feeling like the world was passing me by and people forgot about me. And I could only imagine being in there now, seeing what you see the news and the stocks, and, the billions of dollars going on. I just couldn't even imagine it'd be that much more intense.
Yeah, I mean, you can, and I also like what you mentioned about, like, I love the focus on the commissary accounts. I hadn't necessarily heard of somebody doing that specifically for federal prisoner cannabis prisoners. But, you talked about partnerships and ecosystem. Like, it's a big job when you're talking about expungement, you're talking about, legal battles, you're talking about taking care of families of people that are on the outside, through the process. And it sounds like you're, really aligning yourself. Redemption Foundation's aligning itself with other groups that are
Yep.
trying to help solve this massively complicated challenge.
Yeah, we've always worked well with the Last Prisoner Project, and we're going to be working together, and it sounds like we're going to be the ones doing the administrative works. Like just these groups that were out here that everyone's trying. The Weldon Project, Mission Green, Weldon
Yep.
Angelos. He's the one I feel most responsible for getting people out of prison. He's doing it. He's great at it, and we're a big supporter of his too. And you know, it's it's, um, it's significant. I mean, we're lucky enough too to have, like, the brand in Michigan. It's called True North. They're a great brand. They sell a
Yep.
lot of gummies, and they're donating $5,000 a month, and it strictly goes to commissary because, like, the foundation's myself and 4 other volunteer board members. We have one 1099 employee that does administrative stuff on the books. We don't have a lot of expenses, so what Redemption gives the foundation more than covers everything. So when other people are giving us money, 100% of it's going back out, 100% of it, and that's something I'm really proud of because I remember growing up learning that, like, Red Cross or something, you give it $100 and, 30 of it's going out or whatever it is, and I wanted people
Well,
to be able to feel good about what they're giving us.
I mean, again, I love what you say, because from an ethos perspective, I do think there are organizations out there that want to do the right thing in this, and they don't need to reinvent the wheel. If they're
Yeah.
aware of how to impact this and partner with your organization, you're happy to help. There's no ownership there. You're all about impact in that part of your work, and we're happy to spread that message out there, and bring more awareness, and hopefully some more, contributions, for the work that's being done. That's it's amazing. And, like, I want to switch gears a little bit here because there's so much to cover. Redemption The brand is now sold in many states, Michigan, born and raised, right? Maryland,
Mhm.
Pennsylvania, West Virginia, and Ohio coming soon. Talk to me about operating as a brand in Michigan. Michigan is, where did Michigan go right and wrong in terms of transitioning from a caregiver model to the current state of things?
Well, yeah, back people need to know the history on that because people are like, "Why is there unlimited licenses? And why would you do that?" Well, when we were putting it on the ballot, there was an opposing group collecting signatures, and they were gonna have 10 big rows, kinda like Ohio tried. Remember when I think it was Nick Lachey was a part of it. I remember seeing that when I got out of prison, I was all pissed off, and, like, so we wrote this law so that it would pass, but also that we got a shot. That's all I wanted was a shot to be in the game. Just give me a shot, and, if we had a restricted model, I wouldn't be. That's how a lot of the operators felt that were operating and putting the money up to do this, and a lot of them are still in Michigan and surviving because we found out in Michigan, you need business sense, you need business acumen, and you need knowledge of marijuana. You need both. We've seen people come here, get chewed up and
And you
spit
need
out.
street smarts. Let's be honest. You
Yeah,
need you need to
you need
read
it.
people real well.
It's relationship based. Everybody knows everybody here, but Michigan, like when I launched, I was the second white label brand in the state with flour. Cookies,
Redemption
yeah,
Cannabis was.
yeah, 5 years over 5 years ago, and cookies was first, and then they were actually with Gage, and were part of the deal is Gage helped me with the licensing playbook, and it was great. I'm super thankful for the original owners for doing that. But, we grew. It was just me. I was, like, out doing some vendor days at first. I'd never done a vendor day before, and I had a card table with no skirt, just handing out joints, talking about the brand, and, we've always just connected with the bud tenders one-on-one, and I know I didn't have the financing, and I had to make money from day one. Mushrooms made money. I had to pay myself. I wasn't sitting on anything. I didn't
Yeah,
have
you
any,
plenty
so
money from Canada.
no, no, it was all, "Hey, I grew up like you work and you make money." I didn't understand all this giant these companies coming in with millions, hiring some crazy staff and never growing a plant, so that didn't work, but, that's the thing. After 3 years ago, my now partner, True Driver and Driven Grow, who I've known since 2010, who's been a caregiver and just a brilliant businessman. They bought in at 30% of my company, and that's when I was able to use that money and really grow the brand. And then a year and a half ago, they came in and we merged completely. So Michigan now we're one company and a holding company, and we're vertical. And he's grown from the 500 plant grow right from the beginning, all self-financed, and has now turned all of that, all the profits. He's never taken a dime out. It's gone to things like, merging with me, but also all the CapEx stuff they've done there. We're now a 50,000 square foot indoor grow, 20 acres outdoor, and a big processing, and also a packaging, and just the goal from day one for Drew was to get the cost of production down as low as humanly possible. And we're still driving that down. And, like we were talking earlier, David, I do believe like we have the lowest direct cost per pound in the state, and possibly well, it's got to be up there with the country because and we've got ways to continue to drive that down.
Well, I mean, sounds like you've had to, and you've
Yeah,
had the right mind partnership, you're, together to do that with Driven Grow and running to be able to run a profitable business in Michigan cannabis in the adult use era is not easy, and be able to not be beholden to investors and pay giant, debt sums and work yourself out of business, hope
yep,
praying around a balloon payment in 3 years you never be able to make, right? Like you guys have done it and done it the right way, and there's an ethos and an authenticity and a hustle behind it, along with extreme intelligence and scrappiness to get it there. And it's amazing to see. And obviously, the world of cannabis has taken note. And part of the reason you've been able to expand the brand into other states is a partnership with Trulieve.
yep.
And you look at like what you just told me, and your amazing and an unbelievable and unique story and partnering with Trulieve. I'm sure you've had to explain that a few times, but they've been great partners to work with.
Yeah, they've been incredible. And for me, I want to do this the rest of my life. Like that's the goal. And I didn't start 15, 16 years ago to fail, you know? So, like, part of that and that's just the way it's like, it's no matter what, you do it ethically, but, you know, like, we I'm getting told, and so is Drew, like, we need to actually take vacations, you know? Like, it's starting. But True Leaf came, you know, they became interested in the brand. Some of their people had heard about from Michigan, and then they'd heard about what we're doing with the foundation, but also the fact that we're operating it and the legacy and just the operational part of it. So, you know, it was about a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, and they came calling and, you know, I looked at Trulieve as, you know, them probably along with GTI as the 2 biggest, best chances of making it through whatever happens. You know, I said, "Let's do it." And the crazy thing is people will ask me like, "How was it? How are they like dealing with contracts and all that?" Because, you know, they have a reputation of being very good at legal. And it was the easiest contract I've ever been a part of in my life. They treated me so well and they treat me so well. So like it's been wonderful. They bought in on the brand. We launched in Maryland over a year ago and we've really, really taken off here in the last 3 or 4 months. Like it's been fun to see. We're in about 90 stores there and sales are increasing, coming out with new products. Pennsylvania, different market, MSO heavy.
Yeah.
We're now part of their trade balance. We weren't at first, and if anyone knows anything about Pennsylvania, you want to be a part of the trade balances, how they do things there. So we're in about 90 stores there, just starting to get going. West Virginia was huge. We launched there almost about 5 weeks ago, and we launched in the 10 Trulieve stores, and we got to launch and be there all day at the dispensary 2 miles from where I was in prison at. So it was a great experience being down there. I
Wow.
used
Well, full circle, man.
Yeah, yeah, and the first day or 2 there, I was worked up. I have nothing but bad things to say about Morgantown, but after, like, 2 days, I just completely, like, relaxed, and I was like, "This town is awesome. I wish I would've gone to college here," you know, and everyone was so nice. It was a great experience, and we're their top we got, like, their top 2 and top 4 SKUs right now in their stores. We just have 3 strains going, so it's been really receptive and well, in West Virginia, you know, and Ohio is looking like it's sometime early 26 to be wrapped up. And, you know, we do also have a partner in Oklahoma. It's our buddy that originally were a caregiver up here in since '09, but Altum, they have great genetics and great programs, and their genetics that their pheno hunts of their own stuff all goes into redemption bags in Oklahoma. So we've got a little bit of a presence there as well. So it's been something, but uh, I'm a salesman at heart. I love sales. I love deals. This is a lot of operational and structuring and setting things up. So that's once again why it's so important to have a great partner and understanding your weaknesses. Luckily, I've had all the my ego has been stripped out of me over the last 15 years, so I can tell you what I'm not good at pretty quickly.
Yeah, I mean, and it's also like you Trulieve is a number one, number two revenue cannabis company, and they're pushing your brand, which gives back to the to
Yep.
the to the legacy of it honors it. So I mean, I think it's a great partnership.
I agree, and you know, and for me, it's like it's the inevitable. Anyone that's watched, you can watch the history of America, you know, sex, booze, and drugs, or whatever you want. This is what's going to happen. It's happening. I've known this since we started. It's not wasn't going to stay in the basement. It's not gonna say state. This is how things work. You know, you can study it, and you know, like, and this is the time where legacy is kind of combining with the big companies, and you know, and it's shaking out. So you know, there's going to be a lot of people, unfortunately, that aren't around, you know, in 5 years. Shoot, in Michigan, we're seeing another wave. It's people are showing up to dispensaries and the doors are shut, you know, and paycheck to paycheck. So it's happening. So yeah, it's just being strategic. This is the long game. Like I said, this is the only thing I want to do with my life. So I'm playing the long game, and I'd like to be doing this in 20 years still.
I mean, you're unique. Some people are like, I want to retire one day.
I talked about it, but like as I've kind of like, you know, I've
I would
yeah,
retire, by the way.
I,
Flower.
I
Someone wants to buy flower hire. Yeah, I'll work for you for 3 years. I'm out.
Yeah, I love that. I would probably just be a weed salesman at that point, though, if I go around and do some talks. I've always loved it, and I love the interaction and getting to know everybody. But you know, yeah,
Where you're
it's
inspired by the progress. You see it around you. See the you're motivated by the results, and you know there's so much more work to do, and you're fully aligned and unlocked as a professional. Ethos, legacy matches present day, and I love it. So what do you, I mean, obviously seen this industry from every angle. Your perception of where it's going. What have most operators gotten wrong, you think? Or what do people get wrong when they're thinking about, they don't take into consideration when they're trying to, you mentioned like hiring a bunch of people that have never done cannabis before and taking out a bunch of debt. Is that the biggest sort of downfall you've seen?
Yeah, I had a front row seat to it, especially when I was consulting and watching it. And at first, the first wave in Michigan, and I can speak on Michigan well, but I think it's kind of a microcosm of maybe the rest of the country at times. But we saw a lot of people coming in that were successful in other businesses. Their attitude was, because I was in the room with them, they didn't know who I was. I was in a nice suit. That time for the stoners to get out of the way, and the big boys are coming in to show everyone how to do it. And not a lot of humility, not listening to people that understood the plan and the business. And then having projections that are just ridiculous. Like thinking that you're gonna get 3,000 a pound, 5 years from now, and like,
Because you have the best grower.
because yeah, we have the best grower, and oh, by the way, we just came into Michigan and hired the top 5 lobbying firms, so we are going to get this law changed, so it's just us. Well, they didn't understand in Michigan, like, the reason we got where we were responsible for campaigns. I was the head of our attorney general's marijuana transition team in 2018, and that's, like, my friend now, and we are responsible for so many of these politicians getting elected in Michigan. We didn't need the lobbyists. We have a great one, in Kevin McKinney, but we call up call them up. They weren't used to that. They were used to a state that you come into, and there wasn't all that groundwork. They didn't understand the background and all the political connections we had to have to get where we were out of necessity. I can't stand politics, but I was at every fundraisers. I was doing a lot, but it
Yeah,
was
you
what
better you
life.
better understand it if you're
Yeah,
gonna operate in
I
this.
I understand it, and I definitely needed a break after we made it. So, you know, and then there's also legacy guys that didn't understand business and didn't, maybe even think as far as projections, not even having some of them, or and I heard a lot when I first started my brand, like, why would anyone put put their weed in your bags? Like, I can get 3,000, 4,000 a pound bulk. I'm just like, well, like, it's not gonna stay like this. So it's all gonna come down to brands, and that's why we can, we get a good price. Part of it's the branding, and it's the promos and the marketing, and and all the different things we're doing to make sure our stuff's flying off shelves. So, there was mistakes there, but I feel like now I'm seeing it where it's those same mistakes aren't really being made around me anymore. Everyone's humble. They've been forced to be humble. They've lost a lot of money, but some of them are still in it. And understanding, as we're seeing in Michigan too, it's becoming regular retail. No, it's not the hustle retail anymore. You better understand rewards programs. You better understand, customers, their
Promotional
buying
strategy.
all of that stuff. You
Your
better.
merchant activities better be on point. You better be reading
Yep,
the market and the tea leaves, know when to buy and what to
yep,
buy that you can move. It's not about moving.
you got it.
I no, I've seen it all, and I, what you said, something when we're looking. So the majority of the folks that we actually place, the companies engage us with to hire management, executive level people, have worked professionally in cannabis. We still do. Probably 30-40% of our places never worked in cannabis. So one of the words
Yeah,
you mentioned, like humility, like to know that what you've done that's applicable, but you have to go in there and relearn. You have to work with people that you normally wouldn't work with in any other industry, and they're going to be more knowledgeable in certain ways than you, and you better be able to listen to them. And and
yeah,
and and that's kind of how we try to break it down. One of the ways, plus,
good
like,
advice.
you got better be comfortable in a startup pace and not come to cannabis and figure out you don't like startups.
I'm
And
taking a 3-week vacation every Christmas
yeah,
holiday. I've
expecting your
seen
phone
that.
to be off. But so you obviously, aside from your vertical operation in Michigan, you seem like we run a very lean organization with talented people. What do you look for when you hire?
Uh, for me, there's 2 things. I look for toughness, grit. I grew up working on a farm. My first job was 8 years old walking behind a tractor with a flatbed trailer, picking rocks up all day, every day, all summer. I eventually went to baling hay. I was a door-to-door book salesman 80 hours a week in college out in California and did well. Yeah, but like, so that's what I like. I like the grit because you're gonna need it. You're gonna need to be tough. But the other thing I look for is also like kindness. Like I want people that are good people that are caring about what we're doing. And for me, as the brand, like the brand side here, a lot of people have come because they've approached me, really good people. Like, I have to come work for you. I love what you're doing. And we've been lucky that way. We are actually, we're growing to a point now where we can't just do that anymore. So we are actually going to be looking for a VP of marketing here shortly as well, and that will be a different type of search. That's it.
It's a dream job for the right person.
There's a
Yeah.
story to tell. We're not doing the best job. I can get in a room, I feel like, and tell the story to anybody, but we need help setting the message and getting the message out to the whole country and the world in an organized
I mean,
way.
you don't have to worry about the brand. They just need to take strategies that work for this industry and drive revenue.
And stuff that
Um,
they've probably already done. I think we need somebody with experience, but it's just the evolution of the company. And I'm excited about it. Me and Drew, we're acting as lead marketers right now. We're not marketers, but like we've gotten it here. But I'm not classically trained. I'm not
no,
trained. I'm a
you don't
salesman.
understand. Yeah, yeah, got it. You need a marketing person that can drive revenue. Got it. Lastly, I'll leave you with predictions for either redemption or the next few years in cannabis. Like, is rescheduling happening?
Yeah, I think rescheduling happens very soon.
I was
To
just
three.
talking about this. I'm sorry to interrupt, but I was just talking about this with my team. I'm like, the fact that I live in Nashville, Tennessee, with no medical program, and I can go to a restaurant and get an infused beverage, and go to a number of retail stores and get an infused beverage. Like, cannabis is legal. Like, I don't
Mhm.
understand, and it's just this weird. Like, you
It's
almost can't even. You just have to, sit there and observe and realize it doesn't make sense, and that's the point. It doesn't make
Yep.
sense.
It's just a lot of moving parts coming out of prohibition. It's bound to happen. Yeah, I think Trump's gonna do it here. I also been working hard to get a pardon. That'd be great. Can't I'm a hunter, I can't own a gun, can't protect my family. Just the fact that my first bunkie in prison was had 15 years for three empty shotguns that were old, felonies. I have a gun on me, it's automatic, 5 years, a bullet's an automatic one. I don't like walking, and it's kind of tough. So like things like that, and then future, just kind of being, saying, hey, like full circle, like you were right, we were wrong type deal. So I think that's coming. And then for us, it's really, what we're doing is we're trying to limit our capex the next 2 or 3 years. We're going to drive down. We're actually going to be where we're at. We're creating, to generate our own power. It's exciting. It's not. It's actually, it's fuel based, and but we have an issue there. We think we can drive down our energy costs. We know we can a lot. We'll be selling back, and then we're not subject to power outages and things like that as well. So that's in the next few years, and we think that's going to make us an extremely attractive operation in Michigan, kind of having it all up there. But then expanding the brand market share across the country with True Leaf with low capex. We're doing it with profits, and we're getting market share in these other states. So that's it. We're gonna hammer down, but we're just constantly, trying to get better every day. It's like survival, scratch and claw. I mean, that's it. It's always been like that. That's all we know. So like just not taking our foot off the gas, but just continue to build out the company and turn it into something where if I'm gone for 2 weeks, nothing bad happens. Same thing with Drew. So that's our goal here.
Wow. I think that sounds like you're on the path. You're just going to keep walking on the path. I love that. Thank you for sharing your story with us today, Ryan Basore. Thank you very much.
Appreciate it.